What if I told you that some of the most nutritious, delicious, and productive vegetables you could possibly grow are the ones that nobody's planting anymore? Vegetables that our grandparents grew without thinking twice, that saved people during famines, and so prized that kings had them flourishing in their royal gardens. Most people don't realize this, but while we're busy and chasing modern hybrids and delicate crops that demand endless care, these medieval vegetables were hardy, resilient, and generous. They grew in poor soils, resisted harsh climates, and provided food that nourished generations without the struggle we face today. Welcome to this channel. In this video, we are going to show you 20 historical vegetables that will change the way you think about vegetable gardening forever. So stay with us until the end. Number 1. Earthnut Pea. Imagine stumbling upon a plant that looks humble but secretly hides a treasure underground. That was the earthnut pea, a medieval favorite that grew wild across Europe. Farmers didn't need to pamper it. Its roots quietly produced small, nut-like tubers that could be dug up and eaten. Think of it as nature's hidden snack drawer, always stocked if you knew where to look. Medieval people valued earthnut pea for survival. During famines, peasants dug them up from fields and forests, calling them poor man's truffles. The taste was nutty and slightly sweet, a pleasant surprise compared to the bland staples of the time. Nutritionally, these tubers provided starch and protein, a rare combination in wild plants. But earthnut pea's biggest strength was resilience. It thrived in poor soils where other crops failed, making it a lifeline during hard winters. Herbal texts even praised it for soothing digestion. Yet, as agriculture became more commercial, earthnut pea faded away. Modern farmers dismissed it as too small and fiddly compared to potatoes, a forgotten superfood buried in history, quite literally. Celtus. While earthnut pea hid underground, Celtus stood tall and proud above the soil. Known as stem lettuce, this medieval vegetable was prized not for its leaves, but for its thick, crunchy stalk. Imagine a vegetable that looks like lettuce but tastes like a cross between cucumber and asparagus. That's Celtus. Medieval cooks peeled and sliced the stalks, serving them in stews or roasting them like a delicacy. The leaves were edible too, though slightly bitter, often used in soups. Nutritionally, Celtus offered vitamin C, fiber, and hydration, a refreshing green in times when diets were heavy on bread and meat. Its history traces back to Asia, arriving in Europe through trade routes. Monks grew Celtus in monastery gardens, praising its versatility. But as lettuce varieties with softer leaves became fashionable, Celtus lost its place on the table. Today it survives in pockets of Asia but remains forgotten in Europe. A vegetable that dared to be different, only to be overshadowed by its leafy cousins. Alexanders. Romans introduced this bold plant to Britain, and medieval farmers quickly embraced it. Alexanders refused to stay confined to tidy rows. It grew like a weed, but tasted like a delicacy. The medieval surprise of discovering your troublesome neighbor is actually a great cook. Nearly every part was edible: stems, leaves, flowers, roots, and seeds. People ate young shoots like celery, tossed flowers into salads, and used seeds as a pepper substitute. The leaves gave soups and stews a curious yet pleasant flavor between parsley and celery. Reaching 6 feet tall with bright yellow flowers that attracted helpful insects, Alexanders thrived along coasts, cliffs, and roadsides without human care. It was the freelance vegetable, appearing uninvited yet proving useful. By the 1700s, its role faded as celery replaced it in gardens and kitchens. Today, most people pass it growing wild, unaware of its former importance. Good King Henry. Unlike Alexander's, Good King Henry truly deserves revival. Its royal name remains a mystery, yet it grew widely across medieval Europe, both wild and cultivated. Raising Good King Henry was effortless. It returned year after year without replanting. If plants had resumes, reliability would be its top skill. Nutritionally, it was impressive. Richer in iron than spinach, and packed with vitamin C, vital in medieval diets. During spring shortages, its early shoots were life-saving. Cooks treated young stems like asparagus, mature leaves like spinach, and buds like miniature broccoli. It also held medicinal value. Leaves were applied to wounds, and root tea worked as a mild laxative. In some regions, It was nicknamed all good for its many uses. With the rise of commercial farming, this sturdy plant gradually disappeared from favor. Purslane. Purslane was the leafy opportunist. This humble plant grew wild, in fields, pathways, and gardens, often dismissed as a weed. But medieval people knew better. Purslane was a nutritional powerhouse. Its fleshy leaves carried a mild, lemony flavor, perfect for salads and soups. Nutritionally, purslane was extraordinary, one of the richest plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids, plus vitamins A and C. Herbalists prescribed it for cooling fevers and soothing inflammation. Medieval peasants gathered purslane freely, while noble households served it as a refreshing green in summer. But modern agriculture declared war on it, labeling it a nuisance. A plant once treasured for survival was banished from fields, even though it offered more nutrition than many cultivated crops. Earth apple. While purslane thrived above ground, earth apple reminded medieval farmers of the treasures hidden below. The name earth apple was used for various tuber crops, symbolizing their role as nature's buried fruit. These roots provided starch, sweetness, and resilience, qualities that made them indispensable. Medieval cooks roasted earth apples, mashed them, or added them to stews. Nutritionally, they offered carbohydrates, fiber, and trace minerals, sustaining communities through harsh winters. Herbal texts praised them for strengthening the body and calming the stomach. But earth apple's identity crisis worked against it. As potatoes spread across Europe, the term faded, and the crops associated with it lost recognition. What was once a poetic name for survival food became a forgotten phrase in agricultural history. Skirret. This prized root of the Middle Ages mysteriously vanished from modern farming. Unlike carrots that need constant care, skirret was a low-effort crop. Once planted, its sweet roots multiplied underground, creating hidden food reserves with little work. It was like a savings account, yielding vegetables instead of interest. Its flavor made skirrets stand out. Naturally sweeter than carrots or parsnips, these slender white roots won royal admirers. Nobles demanded them in palace gardens, giving the vegetable its own elite fan club. Skirret's real strength was reliability. Even in harsh winters, when other crops failed, these hardy roots provided nourishment. Old farming texts called them the poor man's comfort when fields lay empty. Versatility added to its appeal. Medieval cooks roasted, boiled, stewed, and baked pies with it. Before potatoes arrived, skirret filled that role. Despite its usefulness, it faded into obscurity as modern farming favored faster-growing, larger crops. Sorrel. If medieval cooks wanted a burst of sharp, lemony flavor, they reached for sorrel. This leafy green grew wild across Europe, thriving in meadows and gardens alike. Its tangy taste brightened soups, sauces, and salads, cutting through the heaviness of medieval meals. Sorrel wasn't just flavor, it was survival. Rich in vitamin C, it helped prevent scurvy during long winters. Herbalists prescribed sorrel tea for fevers and digestive troubles. Its oxalic acid gave it that sour punch, but also meant moderation was key. Medieval people valued sorrel as both food and medicine. Yet, as spinach and lettuce varieties became dominant, sorrel slipped into obscurity. Modern agriculture labeled it too sour for mainstream taste. A plant once celebrated for zest now lingers only in niche gardens. Lamb's lettuce. While sorrel shouted with sharpness, lamb's lettuce whispered with subtlety. Known also as corn salad, this tender green appeared naturally in grain fields after harvest. Medieval farmers discovered its mild, nutty flavor and harvested it through winter when few other greens survived. Nutritionally, lamb's lettuce was a powerhouse. It contained omega-3 fatty acids, iron, and vitamin C, nutrients rare in medieval diets. Monks praised it for sustaining communities during lean months. Its biggest strength was timing. Ripening in cold months, it provided fresh greens when fields lay barren. But modern agriculture overlooked it, favoring lettuces with longer shelf lives and easier harvesting. Lamb's lettuce became a victim of misunderstanding, its name confusing consumers and its delicate leaves dismissed by markets. Salsify, was it a root or an oyster? Medieval farmers struggled to define salsify, a vegetable with one of the strangest flavors. Cooked correctly, it tasted remarkably like oysters, making it prized in medieval times, especially for religious communities avoiding meat or fish. Records from the 1400s show monasteries grew it as a Lent substitute. Medieval gardens had two kinds, white and black salsify. Both produced long, thin roots with dark skins that needed peeling, hiding a gourmet flavor beneath. Winter revealed its true value. Few fresh crops survived the cold, but salsify stayed in the ground through frost. People dug it up as needed, and once harvested, it stored for months without spoiling. Modern farming abandoned it for being slow-growing and odd-looking. Skorzonera, with a name that sounds like an illness. Skorzonera hardly seems appetizing, yet it was a medieval staple. Its name comes from the Italian scorzone, meaning venomous snake. Herbalists once thought the black-skinned root cured bites, but people soon valued it more for taste and nutrition. Though often mistaken for black salsify, Skorzonera's root is longer and straighter, with black skin and white flesh. Its flavor is milder and sweeter than salsify, with hints of asparagus and nuts. Harvested in autumn, the roots stored well when buried in sand, lasting until summer. Few vegetables offered such reliable food security in medieval times. If medieval gardens had a beauty contest, Rampion would win hands down. With delicate bell-shaped flowers and edible roots, it was both ornamental and practical. Rampion's roots were mild and slightly sweet, eaten raw in salads or cooked like parsnips. Its leaves added a peppery kick to soups. Rampion wasn't just food, it was folklore. Tales and songs celebrated it, and some even linked it to magical properties. Herbalists recommended Rampion for cleansing the blood and aiding digestion. Nutritionally, it provided iron and vitamin A, helping peasants survive lean months. But Rampion's fame wasn't enough to save it. As larger, faster-growing root crops like carrots and turnips took over, Rampion slipped into obscurity. Today, most people know the name only from fairy tales like Rapunzel, forgetting that it was once a real vegetable that fed medieval families. Chervil Root. While Rampion charmed with flowers, Chervil Root impressed with flavor. This slender, pale root was considered a gourmet treat in medieval kitchens. Its taste was delicate, somewhere between carrots and parsnips, but with a subtle sweetness that nobles adored. Medieval cooks roasted Chervil root, mashed it into creamy dishes, or added it to stews. Herbalists praised it for calming the stomach and improving appetite. Nutritionally, it offered starch, fiber, and trace minerals, a gentle but reliable source of energy. Chervil root's biggest advantage was its winter hardiness. It stayed fresh in storage for months, providing food security when other vegetables spoiled. Yet, as potatoes and larger parsnips became dominant, Chervil root was sidelined. Modern farming found it too small and slow-growing. A vegetable once fit for kings now barely remembered outside old cookbooks. Welsh onions. Strangely, Welsh onions are neither Welsh nor true onions. Originating in East Asia, they reached Europe via trade around the 1200s. As perennials, they regrow year after year without replanting. Plants multiply into clumps that can be divided, and one medieval text even claimed a single plant could feed a family for a decade. Their role was practical, a steady source of fresh green tops when vegetables were scarce. Cooks used the hollow shoots to season soups, stews, and salads. Most valuable was their winter resilience. Across Europe, Welsh onions stayed green through nearly all but the harshest cold. Fat hen. Unlike Welsh onions that farmers planted intentionally, fat hen appeared on its own. This wild green grew freely in fields, gardens, and waste areas across Europe. Nutritionally, it was powerful, richer in protein than cabbage, with more iron than spinach, and more calcium than kale. Archaeologists found countless seeds in waste pits, proving it was a common famine food. Cooking styles differed. Leaves were boiled like spinach or eaten in salads, while seeds were ground into flour during shortages. Modern agriculture eventually treated fat hen as a weed, competing with cultivated crops. Mangelwurzel. Mangelwurzel was the workhorse of medieval fields. This root vegetable, a cousin of the beet, was grown for both humans and livestock. Its large, bulky roots provided food security when other crops failed. Medieval peasants boiled or roasted Mangelwurzel, while farmers fed it to animals to ensure survival through winter. Nutritionally, it offered carbohydrates, iron, and vitamin C, making it a versatile staple. Herbalists even recommended its leaves for treating wounds. Its name literally means scarcity root, reflecting its role during famines. But as agriculture modernized, Mangelwurzel was relegated to animal feed, dismissed as too coarse for human tables. A vegetable that once saved lives became forgotten in the shadow of more glamorous crops. Lovage. Roman soldiers carried lovage seeds across Europe, planting the herb wherever they settled. Monks later ensured it thrived in monastery gardens. Its flavor was powerful, like celery and parsley, but far stronger. Medieval cooks relied on it heavily. A single sprig could season a pot of soup. Dried leaves flavored meat, seeds enriched bread, and roots were boiled like parsnips. Medicinally, lovage was valued for oils that aided digestion, eased bloating, and worked as a mild diuretic. With global trade introducing new spices, lovage slowly faded from European kitchens. Cardoon. If artichokes had a rugged cousin who preferred medieval gardens to fancy feasts, it would be Cardoon. This thistle-like plant was prized not for its flowers but for its thick, celery-like stalks. Medieval cooks blanched and braised them, turning tough spines into tender delicacies. Imagine biting into something that looks like a weed but tastes like a cross between artichoke and celery. That's Cardoon. Cardoon was more than flavor, it was medicine. Herbalists praised it for aiding digestion and cleansing the liver. Nutritionally, it offered fiber, potassium, and antioxidants, making it a quiet health hero in diets heavy on bread and salted meat. Its resilience made it popular in monastery gardens. But as artichokes gained fame and easier vegetables filled markets, Cardoon faded away. Today it survives in Mediterranean cuisine. But most people walk past its spiky leaves without realizing they're ignoring a medieval superfood. While Cardoon stood tall, Crosne worked underground. This quirky tuber, also called Chinese artichoke, produced small, knobbly roots that looked like strings of pearls. Medieval farmers loved it for its novelty. A vegetable that looked strange but tasted mild and nutty. Crosne roots were eaten raw for crunch or cooked into stews for a delicate sweetness. Nutritionally, they provided carbohydrates and trace minerals, a welcome addition to winter diets. Herbal texts even claimed Crosne smoothed fevers and strengthened the body, but Crosne's odd appearance worked against it. Modern consumers preferred smooth, uniform vegetables. Its small size and fiddly harvesting made it impractical for large-scale farming. A vegetable once treasured for uniqueness became forgotten for being too unusual. Sea kale. Sea kale was an important food for medieval communities, thriving along northern Europe's coast. It grew in sandy, salty soils where few other edible plants could survive. People harvested blanched shoots in spring, like asparagus, and later cooked mature leaves like cabbage. Unlike many wild greens, its flavor was mild and pleasantly sweet. Its greatest value was vitamin C, 6 times more than lemons. For fishing communities with little fresh produce, it helped prevent scurvy. Today, its absence from our diet is like ignoring free wealth. Sea kale still grows on beaches, tasty and nutritious, yet largely forgotten. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to subscribe and share so more people can rediscover them with us.